word of caution to everybody. You can set this all up perfectly, but you have to really ask yourself, if you close 10 new clients this month, can you operationally support that client base? Most likely the answer is no. So before you go and you explode your company with new leads and new prospects and new sales opportunities, if you can't actually handle the workload, you're going to lose them faster than you close them. And welcome back to a brand new episode of the 8-Figure Agency Show, where a successful entrepreneur and a soon-to-be successful entrepreneur help you build an 8-figure agency by documenting our successes and our failures.
Yeah, man, today I am stoked because I've been actually working on this personally inside of my agency, and it's bringing massive impact. It's going over how to build out a sales team and the difference between a flywheel and a funnel, which I find fascinating. And I'm stoked to dive into that. We're actually going to cover 3 things under sales. We're going to talk about tracking, leading and lagging KPIs for sales, and then also personas, and then marketing and how to get your team to help you with the marketing, which is something new that I'm learning. So something that we've been actually working on inside of SMC is we're with Salesforce right now. And we've been with Salesforce for years. So Salesforce is like basically a CRM, does a ton of other stuff as well. And it's very, very robust. You can basically do whatever you want inside of Salesforce. But the downside to Salesforce, it's very costly. And there's a lot of moving parts if you want to do anything inside of it. And so we're moving over to HubSpot, which has more of the things that we want and need out of the box. And much easier. And we're working with some implementation coaches to help us, especially on the sales side of things.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I haven't gotten to that stage yet in terms of building out sales teams and using all that. But I've actually, since you've made the switch, been looking into HubSpot myself. We do everything in ClickUp currently, but HubSpot looks like it has a lot of features and capabilities as opposed to Salesforce, because Salesforce has been reaching out to me as well, but I've been a little hesitant to that. Is the process going good, the transition?
Yeah, it's going really good. So far, so good. We're launching at the end of this year is to get everything up and going and everything working properly. So, yeah, we're launching everything right now. Like we're literally in the middle of it.
That's awesome. I'm excited to see how this goes for you because, as we go and as I grow, I'll be implementing a lot of these things. So I can't wait to play back this clip of this right now of me implementing HubSpot or Salesforce or whatever it is that we do and comparing the two. It'll be an exciting conversation.
One of the things I actually interviewed somebody on one of my old podcasts, Agency Growth Engine, and he's connected with me a while back. He's actually helping me set up the sales side of things, and he's been amazing. His name's Josh, and he's been doing a great job.
That's awesome. I will tell you today for this episode, I'm fired up because sales is a big thing for every business. Sales is, cash flow. Cash flow is the lifeblood of every single business. For those of you who have been listening to the show, you guys know basically since we kind of started the show, since about June, it's kind of been slowly becoming an issue in my business in terms of sales. Since May, I stopped doing any cold outreach. And since then, the business has slowed down significantly. All our business has come from referrals, which has come to be a problem because when referrals stop coming in, business stops coming in. So about a month ago, I started doing cold outreach again. And since starting to do cold outreach, 2 clients in a month have signed up. So I've just been blown away. I knew that it was going to happen because it's a numbers game. The fact that it actually happened is huge. And the clients that we've signed have been huge for us because, what we talked about last episode.
What kind of clients have you gotten?
Yeah, so we've gotten clients on the clip side. So even though, we thought that, market's shrinking and all this, we just weren't doing enough outreach. At least I wasn't doing the outreach. And to be clear, I do 10 messages a day. And I would be lying if I didn't admit that I've missed a couple days here and there the last 30 days. So it's really 3 to 4 days, maybe 5 of 10 messages a day. And from that, I've landed 2 clients.
So
right?
why do you think that when you're doing it, you're getting people, and when your team's doing it, you're not getting people?
That's what we're trying to fix right now. So what I just implemented is I actually just invested in Sales Navigator on LinkedIn. I just invested in Seamless AI, spent a nice chunk of change on that. So now instead of reaching out to the general emails like team@podcast.com, they're going to be reaching out like I've been doing to the head honcho, him or herself. So I've been testing that for 30 days. The results have been incredible. Now I'm giving that to my team, and hopefully that's going to be the missing link because my team's been reaching out to the generic emails, and even though they can do 50 messages a day, they're not getting anywhere, right?
They're not getting in front of the right people.
Exactly. So that's why I'm fired up about today's episode, because we had a big turnaround, this week. And I will tell you, I got to give a shout out to my team because we saved a client. A client canceled and they crushed it so well. We did 5 million views and went from 10,000 to 50,000 followers in 5 days. So absolutely blown away. He crushed it and saved the client. They committed to at least one more month with us, and it put us in such a good spot moving into next month. I'm almost to tears this morning. This is why I love the game of business, the ups and downs, the rule of thirds, all that stuff. But yeah, with that said, I want to get right into it, Gary. So where are we kicking off from with sales?
So the first thing that's really, really important for sales, and this really goes into what you were talking about, Derek, is you have to be able to track your activity, and you have to be able to track the outcomes of that activity. If you can't do that, then you're going to be in trouble. You are going to think something's broken when it's actually not. And going back to your problem, you were tracking activities and you were getting an outcome here, and then your team would do it and you'd get an outcome here. And that was the red flag that set off like, okay, there's something else that's wrong here and we need to dive into that. And that's where you got the other tools. So tracking is really, really important. So what you need to do is really understand the difference between leading and lagging KPIs. So the leading KPIs are activities or steps that you're going to take that's going to drive your lagging KPI. So let's just use your company as an example. Your lagging KPI that you're watching, or your lagging goal that you're watching, is a certain number of sales, right, Derek? How many sales a month are you aiming for?
We're going for 1 to 2 new clients a month.
Okay, so let's just say 2 new clients a month, okay? So that's the goal that you're aiming for. So 2 new clients a month. So what we're going to have to do, and I'm just going to work through some of these KPIs that I have on here, is so how many calendared appointments do you need to have every single week to get 2 sales a month?
2 sales a month. So 1 new client's 4, so it would be 8 meetings, right? So 2 a week.
Okay, so that's really good because you actually already know your conversion rate. So your conversion rate's 50%?
Well, no, it would be 25%.
I'm sorry, 25%. Yeah,
Yes.
so your conversion rate's 25%.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so 25% of the time people are going to say yes, and then so what you want to do is now reverse engineer that. So we want 8. So that means every week you need to have 2 sales calls.
Minimum. Yep.
2 sales calls every week. So what activities do you need to do to make sure you have 2 sales calls every single week?
Need to be sending minimum 10 messages a day in cold outreach, and that's the bare minimum.
So how many messages do you need to send? How many every 10 messages you send, how many appointments do you get?
Really, I think it would be more so. I think it's bigger than that. It's really difficult to answer that, but I think on average, it's every 20 messages I'll get 1 meeting, approximately, something along the lines.
20 messages. Okay, so you need to send 160 messages a month.
Sounds about right.
A month, is that right?
Sounds
if
about
you're
right.
sending 10 a day would be 50. So you'd be a little bit over that if you actually hit the 10 a day. So you would be at 50 a week, and that would put you at 200 for the month.
Yep, sounds about right.
Is that right?
Yeah, numbers are adding up.
I'm just writing this down. So right now, so here's what we have. So you have 200 messages that you're going to send a month. That 200 messages should equal 8 appointments, and those 8 appointments should turn into 2 sales every single month.
Yep.
So pretty simple, right? Like that's really what you have to track. Now you already understand these numbers. So for you, you're like, yeah, duh. But for the people out there who aren't tracking it, this is where they get themselves in trouble. And this kind of leads into our second topic, which is personas or avatars. Okay, so let me just break this down. So this is something that I've been working on because of HubSpot. They kind of force you to move in this direction. And basically what I've been looking at is, so we think of avatars as, for our company, it's our avatar is like dentist, right? That would be a simple way to put it. But inside of dentist, you actually have different personas. So let me just give you a couple of them. The first persona is going to be a dentist who manages his own marketing. And that's going to be somebody that you're going to deal with in a very particular way. The next level up is a marketing manager that works at 4 or 5 locations. And then the next level up from that is a marketing team that's managing anywhere from 20 to several hundred locations. So each of those personas you actually have to approach differently. And if you don't identify your personas correctly, then bad things happen. So let me tell you a story that happened to us. We had a client on the phone, and normally when you're talking to a client, if it's a dentist will demand certain things because they're usually the smartest people in the room, right? They're very, very bright individuals, but they don't understand marketing. So what you have to do when you're talking to this dentist about marketing and they get assertive and saying, no, this is what needs to happen, you actually have to push back with equal force on them and say, I'm sorry, you don't know what you're talking about. That's actually going to end in this way. And you have to meet them with equal force, right? And equal passion, and because they're dentists, right? They're not marketing people. Here's what happened. We were on a sales call we were on with an existing client call, and we had someone who used that strategy, but on a marketing person. Well, with marketing people, you don't approach that way. You appeal to their intellectual side. And when you appeal to their intellectual side, they then want to partner with you, right? The dentist, when you push on them hard and say, hey, I'm sorry, you don't know what you're actually talking about, then what happens is they concede and then let you move forward with the things that need to happen for them. But that's not the case with the marketing people, right? And so this is like really highlighted for me why it's so important that you get the buyer personas underneath your avatars, because that is going to really help your company be able to build out processes for each of the buyer personas. So Derek, in your company, do you have different people that you're dealing with underneath your one avatar?
Yeah, for sure. It would definitely be broken down by the podcast hosts themselves, or like the owner of the company. And then it's going to be the producer, and then it's going to be like assistants of the host or the producer. So those are really the three people that are involved in that process.
So say those one more time for me. I missed one of them.
Yeah, so it's the hosts or the owners of the companies of the show. It's the producers of the show. And then it's the assistants who kind of run the day-to-day, who sometimes are the people who we're in contact with.
Okay, perfect. So are they involved are all three of those people potentially involved in the sales process? Like sometimes one of them's on, sometimes all of them. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's what you need to do. From the sales side, you start to build out buyer personas. So you have your avatar podcasters, right? And I know it's more complicated than that, but I'm just going to make it simple. Underneath that, you put your buyer personas. So now you start to build out for each of these people information about each of them and how they approach the problem and what they're actually trying to accomplish. And then from internally, you then share that with the rest of your team. Hey guys, when an assistant reaches out and says this is how we speak to them. This is our scripting. When a producer reaches out, they're going to be more technical. This is how we speak to them. This is how we deal with them. And then when a host reaches out, which is going to be more higher level and more idealistic, this is how we talk to them. This is our process. So this is going to not only help you sell more accounts because you know who you're talking to, but it's also internally going to allow you to speak and build out scripting for the different personas that you're dealing with.
I just realized, this is blowing my mind because it's such a subtle difference, but I just realized the amount of deals that I haven't closed because of this one mistake. Because I was talking to the assistant as if they were the host, and that's cost me deals. Like I would go on a sales meeting with an assistant or, with somebody who's involved in that process, but who isn't the head honcho. And I would speak to them as if they were the head honcho. And there would be, let me go talk to my team and let you know. And we will never hear back from them again. The reason why I'm looking back on it now and I didn't close is A, I probably didn't do the greatest job of selling them, but B, I spoke to them as if they're the host. They don't only care about keeping their job. So if I was able to present them a way where this would benefit their job, that's the real sale that needs to be made there. That's so valuable. And, it really goes into some of our past episodes, in terms of niching down. Because first you got to know who you're selling, right? And then figuring out within your niche who the people buying actually are, and then figuring out the personas from there. One thing I do want to add when it comes to sales, because it's really important to mention, right? Sales is the lifeline of business. If you're not creating new business, not creating new opportunities, not creating new sales, you're not growing. And the second you're not growing, you're dying, right? But what a lot of people miss, and our friend Corey at Team talks about this often, is operations, right? So you could sell a lot, right? But if your operations aren't good enough to handle your sales, nothing's going to happen. Gary, real quick, I know this isn't an episode on operations, but what advice would you share to, the listeners around that concept?
Yeah, 100%. So you want to make sure that your team can actually handle the process that you're driving in. And this is something that we're actually going through right now as a company. I wish we would have done it sooner. We didn't, though, is identifying these different avatars or identifying these different buying personas and then aligning the team on it. So before, probably how I would have done this when we were smaller is I would have just, we need buyer personas. I would have wrote them down on a piece of paper. Cool. And gone and started selling them, right? Now what we're doing is we're actually building the buyer personas from each person's perspective within the company. So we're first saying, who are the buyer personas? And then number two, who can tell us more about these people from your perspective? Sales, what's your perspective on these people? Marketing, what's your perspective on these people? Operations, onboarding, what's your perspective with these kinds of people? The product, for you it'd be video editing. For us, it's the marketing. What's your perspective of dealing with these people? Account managers, what's your perspective of dealing with these people? Everybody's giving their input, and then now we're going to build out all of our scripting. So now we're not going to say when there's a problem, we're not going to go, oh yeah, how'd you, what happened on that problem? We're going to say, okay, who was the persona that you were speaking to? And it's a huge difference. Like dealing with a producer compared to a host, the host is going to be visionary and looking forward and excited and like, man, I want to do all the things. The producer is going to be like, nope, we're just focused on the next 12 episodes. And really the most important episode is the one we're doing now. And here's the technical things that we need to worry about. And they're much more in the weeds, where the assistant is going to be much more involved in, they just told me to be here and this is what they're asking me to do. So here's my list of items that I need to check the box on. Totally different approach. And I'll also add, you're probably never going to close an assistant ever.
Yep. It just won't happen.
It won't happen because they don't have the authority to actually close on it. It's going to be, so then that means you have to change your sales process. When the assistant comes on the first call, you need to be like, no, we need to get, the host on the call or the buying decision, the main decision maker on that next call. Or you need to say, we don't take calls with assistants. When you guys want to meet, here's who needs to be on the call. There's different ways to approach that. I'm not saying one's right, one's wrong. I just don't want to see you waste your time, right? Like, and that's really important to call out.
Yeah, and I will say, once you get this lined up, so like these first 2 points, especially the buyer's persona, right? Figuring out who you're selling to, outreach, right? That's number one. Get in touch with them somehow. How do you get in touch with people? I'm a big fan of cold outreach. It's just how I did my business up to this day. So it's working now still. It's been working. It's true and tested by time. Cold email, cold DMs, all that fun stuff, cold calling. But again, going deeper on that operations thing, and I'm experiencing this right now, a word of caution to everybody. You can set this all up perfectly, but you have to really ask yourself, if you close 10 new clients this month, can you operationally support that client base? Most likely the answer is no. So before you go and you explode your company with new leads and new prospects and new sales opportunities, if you can't actually handle the workload, you're going to lose them faster than you close them. And that's what I'm going through right now.
That's so I recognize you got to address the bottlenecks. Yeah.
And I recognize that, I can't take on 10
So here's
new
an
clients.
easy way to identify this, Derek. Just ask yourself, how many people can I onboard right now?
Yep.
That's it. That's all you have to ask. How many people bandwidth-wise can we onboard right now?
Yep. No, that's exactly right.
Awesome. So we got tracking, right? So your leading KPIs, and then the lagging KPI or the lagging goal that you're trying to hit. You have your buying personas now. You have 3 buying personas: host, producers, assistant. Now let's get into marketing. Now this one I'm going to push on you, Derek, a little bit, because I know you like cold outreach, and there's nothing wrong with cold outreach, especially when you first get started. But here's the thing, okay? And this is something that I'm actually working on that's been really cool. You handle all the sales calls, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what are some of the biggest pushbacks that you get in sales?
Not the right time.
Drill down on that. What does that mean? Not the right time. Like what are they?
Well, that's what we're trying to figure out. A lot of people will just give us the objection of, hey, it's not the right time. And when we go deeper, they're just like, it's just not the right time. And most likely it's because they don't have the funds to invest into it. That's most likely what they're saying.
Funds. We'll just put funds as one of the biggest issues. Okay.
Yep, pretty standard on that. The other one is they already have an internal team, but most of the time we don't even have a meeting if they do. Really, it's just not the right time and not the funds. That's really it.
Okay, so then when I hear funds, then what I hear is value, right? You lack clarity around the value. And what I mean by that is that if you came to me, Derek, and you said, hey, this is $1 million a month for us to provide our service, I'm going to be like, bro, that's a lot of money. But if you said, if you could articulate to me how it was going to produce $10 million a month, my question is going to be, how many times can I put $1 million in with you every single month, right?
Yep.
And because you've been able to show me that there's value to the $1 million, what it's going to produce on the back end. So then what you want to do is you want to identify where they're not seeing the value and how it's not tying back into their business. And then what that's going to do, here's the cool part, okay? So when you start to really drill down to this, so if someone says, man, I just don't have the funds right now, and you say, I totally get that. What we're able to actually do is we're going to help you. If you do this, you will have the funds for it and extra money. Let me explain why. And you re-articulate your case on how you producing the podcast, you doing the reels is going to push up into producing more clients, and that more clients is going to equal more end results for them, more sponsorships, whatever, right? So that if you can articulate that, then more people are going to say yes. Now, here's how it ties into marketing, though. Traditional marketing, or how most marketing departments are set up, they're kind of on an island, and it's kind of like, hey, you just produce leads. Just get us as many leads as possible. And they may or may not be good leads, right? Instead of cold calling and outreaching, I'm not saying stop that. I'm just saying instead of doing that for the long term, like this is our plan, what if you produce content that push the value of everything that you're doing, but from the sales perspective? So you start to walk through that problem, because all the obstacles that you've actually faced in sales is what your marketing should be revolving around. And so now this is a little bit different for B2B than B2C, and this is why I was hung up on it. Normally, for marketing for us, what the product that we provide at SMC is B2C, meaning you have a business that's marketing to a customer. And when you market to a customer, there's not as many roadblocks to that customer. So as an example, if I'm marketing water, B2C, right? It's just like, hey, do you want to drink this water? And it's either a yes or a no. And do they have the money to afford it? Yes or no. They don't have to check with anybody else. There's just buy this, and they do, right? And that's most of the time when we think of marketing, that's what we think of. We think of B2C. But the business you're involved with, Derek, is you're actually in B2B to B in some cases, right? So you're business to business marketing to other businesses, okay? So now you have to understand that that's very, very complex. Let me explain why. If you reach out to me and you're trying to market to me a business, I don't get to just say yes. I have contracts that I have to think about. I have an executive team I have to think about. I have a marketing department I have to think about. I have budgets that I have to think about that reset at certain times. There's so much complexity that you don't get to just walk in the front door and go, hey, do you want to buy this thing? Yeah, sure. And they buy a bunch of those things. It doesn't work that way in B2B and for most people, right? And so you have to understand that complexity. And then what you do to remove that complexity and help people make it simple is you take all the problems that you've been facing in sales, all the objections that you've been getting, you outline those, and then that becomes your marketing plan. Because guess what? The people that you are now marketing to, and you're saying, hey, I realize that most people don't think they have the funds for this kind of marketing, but let me explain to you why you do. And you start to walk through the end result that they're going to get from that. All of a sudden, now you have people, instead of you reaching out to them, they're reaching out to you. And you just flip the whole model on its head.
Yeah, there's two things I want to touch on there. One question and one kind of going a bit deeper into that. I'll share a couple tips around this because I've been experimenting with this, and a lot of this has come actually out of the mastermind. So the AGE mastermind. Shout out Dino for this if you're listening. This is because of you, my man. He put me onto Twitter, and Twitter has been my favorite platform. Twitter and LinkedIn over the last 30 days, incredible. The reach is incredible. I needed to hire an editor desperately. I made a tweet. I have like 50 Twitter followers and I get no reach. I said, hiring an editor, DM me. I had maybe 10 people reach out to me, email, Instagram, and Twitter. Completely organic. So the reach is there on Twitter, and I have 50 followers, and I only just recently started posting. Twitter's huge. I got a new client on Twitter after starting in a week. So again, shout out Dino. Literally 1 week, I went on Twitter, boom, new client came my way. And organic content works. I'm a big fan of cold because that's just how I got my start. And look, if you're listening to this and you want to start, cold it's free. You just literally go Google, find a person's email. It takes maybe 30 to 60 seconds. There's a million websites you could use to do it. I use Seamless AI. It's fantastic. And then you could just literally find anybody. You could find anybody's email, and just shoot them an email. Hey, do you want this? Eventually, someone will say yes. It's true. It's hard to believe. If you're listening to this and you've never done it, I was there. It's really hard to believe you could get someone to say yes, especially if you're selling a premium service. I'm here to tell you, because I did it, it's very possible. And once you get there, you just keep going, and more people are going to say yes, and more people are going to say yes. The question I had for you, Gary, is this. A couple minutes ago, you were discussing about articulating your value properly. And you made the example of, like, in my case, here's how it's going to get you more clients. What was going through my head, and I know we've talked about this before, so I'm curious to see your answer. For those people listening who are like, yeah, Gary, that's easy to say when you're selling money to people. What if your service doesn't actually make people more money? It's an expensive service, but it doesn't directly make more money like paid ads does. How do you approach that value situation?
So like what? Give me an example.
Yeah, so that's basically what the answers I was going to be looking for are. But what I think you would answer me with is time, right? You're selling time. Or there was a third one and I'm completely blanking. It's money, time, and then there was one more.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean, so just because you're selling time and just because you're selling more money doesn't mean that that's how people perceive it, right? So that's why the sales process is so important. You have to understand what your objections are. So if someone's just like, no, it's not the right time for us to do this, you really haven't dug deep enough to figure out why people aren't saying yes, and you haven't drilled far enough into the podcast or whoever you're talking to really understand the business model. So for me, what I would want to do is I would want to understand podcasting as a business, and I would want to understand how to really drive results for that podcast. Now, first thing that pops into my head is just more views, right? But what do the more views equal? So let's just walk through this. If you do just shorts, how many short views do I need to get that equals one more view on my podcast, right? So it's like, okay, well, of every 10,000 shorts you get, that equals 10 podcast views or whatever. So you can actually now start to see how it moves, how shorts move the bottom line for that podcast, which is views on the podcast. From there, I would want to understand, am I dealing with somebody who has sponsors? Am I dealing with somebody who's a paid podcast just by somebody else paying for it? Because those are two different approaches. They're going to have two different needs, right? And then from there, I would ask, how can I provide more value to that bottom line of whatever avatar that I'm actually speaking directly to? And I know that you've walked through this process before, and people are like, no, I just want more views. Just give me more views. Here's the thing that I've learned, Derek. I understand dental marketing operations better than most dental marketing people or dental people, period. And if I just took their pat answer every single time that they try to give me, I would end up in the wrong place because they don't actually understand what they're doing as well as I do, because I just never took, oh yeah, no, we just want this as the answer. I just kept drilling deeper and deeper and deeper until I started to understand what drove their top line revenue better than they did.
Yep. So I actually came to learn this recently, and we're working to improve upon this. A lot of our clients' answers have since changed, and it's gone from I just want views to I want views to make money. And I think where we went wrong, Gary, is the way we presented them an opportunity to make money for the specific clients we approached. They didn't want to approach it that way. But if there was a way for us to passively make them more money, like through YouTube, they're like, we're all in.
Yes.
But we just don't want to put more ads out there. We don't want to do X, Y, Z. So bottom line is, I really think it comes down to the money in terms of it all for us as well.
Which I told you at the beginning. I said that, right?
Yes, you did.
Yeah, and
yes,
you were like,
absolutely
but they don't agree with that, right? And it was
I was totally wrong.
Yeah, it was just you were going about it. You entered the wrong door you tried to enter into the wrong door.
Yep.
But this is why asking questions in that sales process and getting a clear understanding is so important. And just being curious more than anything, like being curious about, and I know you guys do this, but being curious about what drives things. And again, a lot of times they don't even know it. So you can't expect them to come to the answers with you. You have to find those answers outside of them.
Yeah, and with that, it also comes the need to always be willing to change and adapt. So I learned this lesson this last 30 days with multiple people approaching me on the client side saying, hey, we've even lost clients this month because of this lack of innovation. But here's the kicker for this. We weren't not innovating. We were innovating, but we weren't explaining or communicating the innovations properly. So the whole team was shocked. You're like, Derek, like these clips look nothing like they did 30 days ago. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but I failed you guys and I failed the client and lost us the client because I very poorly communicated these changes. You guys spent all this time making them. It led to way better results. Like some clients left us where we absolutely crushed it and we were shocked. I failed because I didn't communicate the innovations properly. So you got to be open to change. You got to be innovating, on this. And it also sounds like on the value side, Gary, you're basically saying reverse engineering the objections. So like if someone says not enough time or it's not the right time or they don't have money, you really have to go into understanding why they're actually saying it. Like why isn't it the right time? Position your marketing and your messaging around that. Or is that correct?
So how I would do it, just from what I heard from you, Derek, my content would be, here's how I can add an extra $10,000 a month to your podcast, revenue to your podcast without you doing any extra work. And then I would explain it. What we're going to do is we're going to come into your podcast. We're going to clip them differently than the way you're currently clipping them with your internal team. And we're going to start uploading them to YouTube Shorts. And come January, when the creator fund opens up with YouTube, you're going to be making at least this much money from our projections. And that's how I would now you've just paid for your service, Derek. So now you just said, hey, you're getting a free service from me, plus you're getting $5,000 in your pocket because you're going to pay me. I'm just using round numbers. You're going to pay me $5,000. I'm going to make you $10,000. And now you have more content, more views. You can also sell advertising for more. All these things open up because now you have more opportunity. And that's how you create the marketing. It's a different mindset to do that, but it's huge.
Yeah, I am definitely stealing that positioning and framework, and that is going to be our go-to offer for the next 3 months until January rolls around. But no, that is huge, and it's super valuable. I guess, really, Gary, linking all of these three things together, the desired outcome when this happens, right? How do you position that to anybody listening right now, right? So you got your tracking down. You got your leading and lagging KPIs, right? All those indicators. You've got your personas down, and you got your marketing down to a T. What's next?
Grow and fix your expand your operations so that way you can actually handle these people. And then you know what it's going to be is going to be churn. Now you got to solve churn, and you have to solve churn from the same way we just solved the marketing problem. It's not just like, hey, we need to do more. It's okay. What are the red flags for churn? How can we start to predict churn and see it from the client side? And then how do we start to close each one of those red flags off so that they don't ever come up? And so when a client misses an appointment, like for us, client missing an appointment, red flag. Okay, that's our churn red flag. All right, what are we going to do about it now? And so you have to solve churn. Churn's going to be your next problem to solve.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, operations and churn will be our next episode. There we go. We're on it. So, yeah, Gary, anything else you want to add before we wrap things up here today?
Nope. This has been a fun one. This is something that I'm in the middle of, and I would love to update on this one in like 2 months.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely would love to do that as well. Guys, thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for listening and watching. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and smash the like button. If you listened all the way here 30 minutes in, definitely like what you saw and what you heard. So definitely do that. If you're listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, guys, we're climbing up, but we want some more reviews. Leave us reviews. Those 5-star reviews really help. And share the show with someone you think might really enjoy it. We try to provide as much value as we can. If you know somebody who can benefit from the show, share it with them. Check us out on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts. We post content there daily. And with that said, guys, thanks so much. We love you, and we will see you in next week's episode. Peace.